everybody. How are we all doing today? No more music. I hope you guys are ready for another fantastic day of some absolutely incredible flying out of the DCS pilots. We're back, week 10, InSky versus Wolfpack, SATAC 2022. Only fight this week for some sad reasons. We are going to get right into the thick of it. But what's the first thing we got to do around here? Well, we already know what it is. We got to talk about our maps. We got 6 different maps. 5 different maps. I can count. We have 5 different maps that we run through here. Now, technically, 2 of them are both in the Caucasus region, but we use 5 different maps. Now, what do we do with these maps? We roll. That's why there's a random number generator on your screen. What we do is we roll each time. We have a table that we use, 18 different digits. Each digit is a different map and a different weather setting. So we're just going to get right on into that. See what number we get? We get 12. We got 12. So what is 12? 12 is a clear late afternoon at Ras versus Liwa. So we're going to let the people in charge know that Ras versus Liwa is our first mission location. Now, if not everybody has the correct map, which I believe is Syria, we'll come back, we'll roll again. But while we get those sorted out and we let everybody know, we're going to go ahead and show you guys the local favorite, the fantastic trailer for SATAC 2022, and a quick thank you, of course, to our sponsor.
We'll call him the Southern Group. Eastern Group is 50 east of Whopper. Eastern Group now turning cold angle. Understand, cleared to kill. Leader, past the line now. Clear kill, clear kill.
По курсу до цели полсотни 3. Больше 3. Наблюдаю, работаю по ней. Десятку наблюдает? Нет. Давай, выходи вправо. Пост. Понял. Пост второй за нами, давай. Огонь, огонь! Понял.
Well, let's talk about the fight itself, right? Hope you guys enjoy that video, though. I do every single time. The way SATAC works, we got 4 different groups, A through D. Each group is made up of multiple teams, and those teams fight each other out in the preliminary fights. That gives them a point rank standing. Then the top 2 teams from each group go into their knockouts. And once we get into the knockouts, that is a typical tournament style. 2 teams will fight each other. The winner moves on. The loser does not. But while we're talking about teams, we do have to mention something here. As you'll notice, there are teams in Group C and Group B who haven't fought yet. And unfortunately, we won't be able to see them fight this year. Both GTAC and GC have had to withdraw from the competition from local reasons. See, the beautiful thing about SATAC is it's an international competition. Pilots from around the world, teams from around the world, get up and come join us here at SATAC each year to fight their amazing fights. But unfortunately, that also means that world events can limit people from joining us. So unfortunately, we've had to say goodbye this year to GC and GTAC, not because they wanted to leave, but unfortunately because the life they lived said, you gotta leave. And that is unfortunate, but it's okay. We appreciate that they were ready to fight anyways, and even if they can't, we do love it. But today we are in Group D. We've got NP versus Wolfpack. Now that's going to be a confusing word set if we start going with NP and WP. So we're going to go with NC and Wolfpack to make sure we know who's who. Now, have we seen these guys fight yet this year? Is this the first time that we're seeing the match? Well, let's take a look at our results. You'll see it's not. It is for Wolfpack. This will be Wolfpack's first match looking to come against InSky. InSky, on the other hand, came out fighting in the early weeks against PTF, taking a victory over them, currently putting them in the lead for Group D. Right now, as things stand, InSky has the best bet of making it into the knockout rounds, and Wolfpack's going to have to be on their A game to make sure that they aren't. Make sure that they're the ones who go ahead and take the victory there today, so that they can have a standing of getting to those ever far away knockout rounds. Oh, I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited for today's fight. Teams are both some of the best teams that we have, and getting to see them fight will be great. We, of course, will be joined by the fantastic Mr. Rich again, hopefully this time quite a bit more audible. Let's see, in fact, let's see what he's up to. How you doing, Tech? Tech? How you doing, Rich?
Oh, what? Oh, no, yeah, this is Rich. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How about you, bro?
Oh, I am fantastic, ready for some great fights today.
Yeah, same here, man. It's going to be good. Alrighty, I've just confirmed with the teams that PG's all good to go. So, guys are going to be slotting in and getting underway.
All right. I'm excited to see the Persian Gulf map. It's the first time we've seen it this season. Everything else has been on the Caucasus region so far as I can remember. What are some things that players might need to watch out for as we get into this map here on the Persian Gulf?
Well, it's Ras Liwa, so if I'm not mistaken, actually no, negative. That will be over the Dubai. So yeah, the odd building. Yes, you watch out to not crash into those. But yeah, there's like I say, there's buildings to work with, but otherwise it's a pretty clean map. So we'll have to see how the teams do and how they want to play out. There's a little feet wet as well that's available to be used if teams so desire.
Okay, yeah. So let's discuss this with the buildings here. See, the last set of fights that we've seen around the Caucasus region, of course, one of the predominant features of Caucasus is simply the mountains. And now, while there are mountains in the Persian Gulf map, we won't be seeing any mountains. This will be one of the first fights, if I'm not mistaken, that takes place with almost no terrain coverage. Else than, of course, as you mentioned, the buildings of downtown Dubai. How is that going to affect pilots? What are they going to have to think of differently?
Well, crashing into the ground is definitely less of a drama since the ground kind of stays put, at least relatively. Also, the PG maps, when it comes to sort of inclement weather, definitely not as crazy as some of the Caucasus variations we've got to this year. When it comes to defeating missiles and also breaking line of sight, obviously lots to change there. It's more of a notching deal rather than breaking line of sight when it comes to AWACS and radars. So yeah, it does change it quite a bit.
Indeed, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult for players to get down low and sneak in, which we've seen happen a couple times. Players getting real low, trying to notch the radar, use the mountains to obscure them from the AWACS and from the rest of their opponents' radars to try and get within the tussle, of course, but, well, we don't have that this time.
Nope, yep, just flat terrain, again, apart from the Dubai, but you know, a team would have to specifically orient to be able to utilize that. If both teams are kind of just heading straight into bullseye, oh, excuse me, you'll usually end up sort of away from the coast there. But yeah, fights are dynamic. Could wander into Dubai proper, we'll have to see.
Indeed, I'd be excited to see some very movie-ready fighting in the mountain, or in not in the mountains, fighting in the cities. It'd be like a replay of the infamous Transformers fight, which is not very infamous, but that's what I think of when I think of fighting in the cities. I think of movies like Transformers or the old Modern Warfare 2. Well, let's take a look at the map itself in DCS. Let's get right into that. All right, well, like we said, guys, this map, of course, not affected at all by natural terrain. Now, there is, of course, feet wet territory over here, but all of the mountains on the eastern side of the map are outside the play circle. That play circle is indicated by the red and green dotted circles that you see in front of you on your screen. What happens if a player leaves those circles there, Rich?
Well, if they leave while the opposite team is still in the, let's call it the bubble, the bullseye, then not much. But if they try and re-enter, then they will, let's be detonated, I suppose you can put it.
We have SAM sites on standby to ensure that they're not allowed to re-enter that circle.
Very, very effective SAM sites, it seems. So
Indeed.
Instantaneous, if you will.
The U.S. Army is asking for us to sell them the rights to using our instantaneous SAM sites now.
I know, man. They're pretty OP.
So what does this mean for the players? Well, this means they can't obviously leave that circle. They want to continue the fight, and whoever controls the circle is the winner. Now, normally that happens through last man standing, but should a player leave that circle, are they able to fight from outside that circle?
Not necessarily. There is a timer from takeoff, or no, my mistake. From when the first aircraft enters the bubble. By that point, shooting outside the bubble is forbidden. So it all depends on when they decide to leave the bubble. I guess this is kind of real edge case, but edge case nonetheless.
Yeah.
But usually, as you'll see, teams elect to kind of just get in the bubble and get the fight over with. But if people want to get really crazy with the tactics on that, like you know, that's technically by the rules. That's okay. But, you know, once that time is done, everybody needs to be inside the bubble. And, you know, by doing so, obviously, you're now unable to shoot outside of it.
Indeed. That would be quite the interesting way for a match to end. And a part of me wonders if it could happen. If on a flat open map like this with almost nothing to obscure terrain, if we could see somebody getting chased out of the bubble. But at the same time, I think these teams are, you know, if you're coming in to compete in a competition like this, you definitely have the confidence in yourself. You're probably prepared to be able to notch missiles. You're not totally looking for the ground defeat tactic that, you know I sometimes have to use myself. And of course, that's not the only way people can defeat missiles. When you're talking about a BVR competition like this, players will definitely be able to kinematically defeat these missiles, which would probably be a little bit more useful here than normal. I mean, it's always useful, but without the terrain to mask yourself into, kinematic defeating of the missiles is going to be a great way for players to keep their energy up and keep their altitude a bit.
Yep, true. Like we've said before, no mountains, no hills, so you kind of lose the ability to obviously just ditch missiles into mountains. You know, for example, for actives, make them lose line of sight so they can no longer be guiding. You know, so yeah, different gameplay for sure. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Indeed, I'm excited to see. Let's see who's shown up and what they're bringing. So far, we've only got one Wolfpack player in F-16C. We've got a second Wolfpack player in the F-16C and another F-18. Looks like a lot of Blue 4 jets today, Rich. Now we've seen a good mix so far in the fight. We've seen Blue 4 jets, we've seen Red 4 jets, we've seen high fidelities, we've seen low fidelities. Today it seems like we're almost exclusively seeing Vipers out of Wolfpack. There's 5 Vipers and only 1 Hornet. That nimble aircraft, it doesn't have the most fuel, it doesn't have the most missiles, but it's not bad. Its radar might be a bit limited, though. In a map like this, what do we expect to see from Wolfpack?
Well, with a really strong F-16 showing, I'd imagine energy is probably on their mind. But that being said, I think the Hornet, put very simply and breaking it down kind of into very basics, the Viper and the Hornet kind of trade blows depending on what you're looking for. So really it could be anything. It could even just be down to personal preference, because really, you know, you may sometimes end up splitting those hairs.
Indeed.
So unfortunately, you just got to see, you know, round one and see what both teams have got to, what hands they show.
For sure, for sure. Now, the Viper is one of the aircraft. I think there's a bit of a debate as to which aircraft is the least affected by some of the rules in SATAC. And of course, one of those rules is who has the most amount of their missiles. What percentage of your missiles can you carry? Of course, we limit the missile counts down to 4 active missiles. Everything else can be whatever you want it to be, right? The Viper only has access to its 2 heaters at this point. Now, that is not an atypical loadout for a Viper to take. 4 AIM-120s and 2 Fox 2 Sidewinder missiles. Whereas some of the other craft, like the F-15 and the F-18 and the Tomcat, can bring that extra little bit of medium-range assistance out of their Sparrow missiles, something the Viper doesn't have access to, which we've seen some teams elect to bring these Sparrows. Last week, we even saw teams electing to completely drop the use of the Sparrow in favor of just the AMRAAM missiles. It could be something that comes back to haunt Wolfpack here without having their semi-active missiles, but I think the Viper tends to stand well, despite the fact that it doesn't have that fallback of a radar-guided missile. It just immediately drops to its Sidewinder missiles. The fact that it's so nimble, agile, and quick. Oh, and we're seeing the Wolfpack team start getting moving here. It really allows them to do a pretty good job of getting their missiles off and getting in there quick, getting in the tussle, right? Not trying to let the fight extend to where they've they've lost their missiles, and that's something I think I'm hoping to see out of Wolfpack here. What do you think about InSky? What do you think we're going to see from them?
Well, just to tie up that last thought, I think that's totally valid because, again, the F-16, it may not be able to carry the payloads the Hornets can, but it moves a hell of a lot faster and can get the job done a hell of a lot quicker. So, you know, it's kind of a trade-off. Do you want to go quicker or do you want the more missiles, depending on how you want to play out the match? InSky, they are, again, very F-16 heavy, but they do tend to fly a lot more passively than you would expect, at least from, you know, F-16s. So, you know, they're kind of working those grinders, kind of being very patient, waiting for the time to go in and start fighting. I remember for our, can't remember who the opposition was. It was actually our day one match. They were kind of, it was against PTF, my bad. They were, you know, grinding, and then finally I think they got it down to a 2 versus 2, and that's kind of when they decided to go in for the ACM.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I'd imagine you'd probably want more missiles if that was your game plan from the get-go. But again, I think a lot of the time it does just come down to personal preference. Maybe people are just more comfortable with one or the other. But again, it's all to be seen.
Indeed, I know I personally like the Viper's radar, although I've been slowly coming around to the Hornets. The Vipers it's a little bit easier to use, doesn't require so much thinking as some of the other radars do, but it'd be interesting to see a lot of Vipers fighting a lot of Vipers. You have a very even playfield between the two teams.
Yeah,
really looking at yeah, exactly, apples to apples, really looking at a difference coming down to tactics, weapons implementation, how they fly their jets, and just individual pilot skill.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's it, you know, when the airframes are the same or near parity, it's the differences start playing in the actual, you know, individual team members and the tactics employed. So definitely makes it interesting.
Indeed, and it looks like as InSky gets themselves slotted into their jets, we've got 3 Vipers so far and an F-18. That beautiful blue InSky aircraft scheme that they have. I do enjoy seeing all of the... yeah, not in rain. Do very much enjoy seeing all of the teams with their own liveries. Wolfpack starting to line up here on the runway. Now, sometimes we can try to decipher what the team's plan is from how they're set up on the runway. Not every time, but sometimes we can try to get an idea of it. I get the strange feeling that Wolfpack is probably going to send one of their Vipers up first, but I don't think that's much of an insight, as most of their aircraft are Vipers, and they seem to be rocking relatively the same loadout. In fact, let's go ahead and check those out now that the teams are getting themselves situated on the ground. It looks like, indeed, Wolfpack is running one of the same loadouts for all of their Vipers, the triple bag loadout. Now, this is pretty common. This is basically what we've seen out of Vipers in this match, largely just because that centerline bag is a great way for them to get up to altitude, but they have to remember to jettison that bag pretty quickly. It's very draggy. It really slows down the jet. But the extra bag, it seems to me as if Wolfpack is ready for the long fight. They're prepared to get the most fuel out of their Vipers, and they know that InSky likes to play it long.
Yep.
But they've elected not to take extra missiles on the Hornet. The Hornet running... We saw this loadout last week. Yeah. We saw this loadout last week, and comments made during our interviews where players were saying that they found the Hornet with double bags was about as fuel efficient as the single bag Hornet, getting a little bit less drag on those wingtips. So it'd be interesting to see how they intend to use the Hornet. Will the Hornet be working in conjunction with an F-16, or will the Hornet be sort of working on its own? I expect, based on this lineup here, that we see the Hornet work in conjunction with the F-16. It looks like Wolfpack is set up to work in pairs as they hunt them down. But they are not staggered in their takeoff.
I was about to mention as well, same lineup on InSky. Single Hornet.
Same lineup in InSky.
From the looks
Single
of it,
Hornet. Interesting. This will be very fun to see Indeed, it does look like we have the exact same loadout here over at InSky, rocking their beautiful jets. Oh, just gorgeous. And the alignment here looks pixel perfect. Fantastic. Rocking very much the similar jets. I'm certainly excited to see how the teams deploy differently, despite the fact that they're using the same jets. I think the difference in tactics will be a lot more apparent this matchup, just because there's not so much difference in the jet. What altitudes are you hoping to see here? Now, the F-16C, the reason we're asking this question, the reason we want to find this out, it doesn't have the biggest wings. It struggles at some of the higher altitudes where aircraft like the F-15 and the F-14 can really start to dominate. But without seeing those altitudes out of these jets because of their smaller wings and smaller engines, we won't be able to see some of these in crazy range shots. So what are you expecting to see out of these jets? Personally, I'm expecting to see maybe around 32,000. That's what I would go for my highest ingress with the Viper. What are your thoughts, Rich?
Well, you know me, 51st key up high fast is sort of in my blood. So, you know, I want to see a 40, 50,000 just missile fest. But, you know, some teams have deployed, like I know Alamo did a really good high fast with the 15s, but it is quite a rare tactic. So I don't think, especially we obviously have seen InSky already, and we know from last SATAC they like to work their grinders. But from Wolfpack, I don't know, because again, they're kind of a new team here this year. Probably going to expect them, you know, keep it safe. It's, you know, early days for them. Obviously, the higher you go, the more on your game you have to be. So, yeah, you know, maybe a good, nice casual 25, 30,000, you know, not looking to get caught out up high.
Indeed. Now, Wolfpack says they are ready, lined up on the runway, ready to take off and bring the fight. I'm sure they're feeling it, ready to get in there.
Oh, yeah.
They want to get in the air. They want to get the burners turning. They want to get their missiles loose as we wait for InSky to get themselves sorted out here.
But one last note, I just want to quickly mention, it is going to be interesting to see, like you were saying before, how the Hornet, for both teams, it seems to have just got a single Hornet with a bunch of F-16s, obviously a bit of a performance mismatch there. So that's it, isn't it? Is it going to be working single, or is it going to try and catch up with the F-16? Actually, if we end up doing interviews, actually something I want to ask, you know, like, what's the idea behind having a single Hornet, and,
Indeed.
you know, how that one, you know, is it data link? You know, where's the advantage? You know, like what's the plan behind that? But
especially because it looks like they aren't. Never mind, they are not using. The two teams have chosen different loadouts. One of the 18s rocking the more traditional 2 bags loadouts, but it doesn't seem like they're trying to make use of any weapon systems. Now, one reason that the F-18 could have a benefit is, of course, that it can carry the TALD, which we saw employed last week. But
absolutely,
neither team seems to be bringing out the TALDs. Maybe they're just putting out their feelers, trying to figure out what aircraft is on the opposing side, or maybe it could just be truly down to personal preference.
But that's it again. It just comes back to you know, full loop. It could just be pilots prefer one or the other, because that's it. You know, unless you're getting very specific edge case tactics, the aircraft basically operate the same. So
indeed.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like InSky is setting themselves on the runway up here. Oh. Seems like they almost had a collision there, but of course these pilots know what they're doing. It's more like watching a group of precision dancing as they get themselves sorted here on the runway.
That's true. It ain't just about what happens in the air, but also ground ops as well. At least as far as SATAC concerned, sorry. You know, if they're not ready and they have a crash and something happens, then it's all good. So, you know, no skin in the game just yet. But, you know, you obviously want to be able to line... You just look silly on stream otherwise, so, you know, you kind of want to be able to line up, obviously, without any mistakes.
Indeed. Well, they've made sure they looked good on stream with this. That massive light from the F-18's landing gear. It's crazy how American
Interesting
engineers
lineup.
are able to harness the entire power of a sun to make sure that
Oh yeah.
that thing lights were visible from quite far away.
Yep, definitely something to it for sure.
Oh,
Also,
looks like
very
really green.
spread out lineup as
Yeah,
well
very spread
compared to
out. Looks
teams we've
like
seen.
they're
So
certainly ready
definitely,
to
definitely looking to avoid
get
that wake
rolling.
turbulence.
Yep.
A
Wake
little tidbit
turbulence.
from last year. I know they were having some drama with wake turbulence, so I think that might be a carryover from what they learnt last year.
Indeed, yeah. Just a little bit of wake turbulence scare, of course. Wolfpack nice and lined up here. And it looks like InSky is ready. So let's get this fight on the road. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fights on. I'm excited to see these players play their best. Looks like right off the bat, Wolfpack running out the moment that counter starts, getting their planes airborne one after another. Hopefully we don't see any wake turbulence here.
Plenty of power on. Middle power can be a bit of an oof, but they'll afterburner takeoff. They should be able to power through any trouble that they run into.
Indeed, and it seems as though they are all Wolfpack jets rolling the last few on their rotate, about to get airborne. And it seems like everybody was able to power through. That was quite well done. No wake turbulence there. How's InSky doing?
No shenanigans.
No shenanigans. InSky is a little bit more delayed. Still working on getting themselves airborne here. Nice, beautiful, full runway takeoffs. Let's just get down nice and close and watch these last two jets get ready to roll. Oh, those beautiful Viper burner cans as they get ready in the final two.
Interesting, seems the Hornets in military.
Indeed, kind of going off on his own here. Viper takes off into the setting.
My question's been half answered.
Perhaps looks like there could be going for a bit of a separated out unit, and looks like they could also be trying to save fuel. How about Wolfpack? Well, Wolfpack seems to be largely doing a connected flight. We've got a nice formation here. They're flying in 3 sets of 2. Already supersonic. Much lower altitudes. Wolfpack flying in 13,000 feet supersonic. They are eating up their fuel quickly. They could be looking to knife fight this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on the table. Which will be interesting because, you know, it's... yeah, again, it's presumed that InSky are going to continue the trend and go for that sort of passive grind. And then you say Wolfpack go in for the aggressive energy fight, you know, try and work them low and get all over them. You know, how those two strategies play off each other. It's always good to see.
Indeed. Getting themselves sorted out as they come into the fight. Not a ton of deployment, and we are seeing not a lot of altitude here. Both teams are electing to go straight into the circle. Highest flights over here, 29,000. Looks like Wolfpack is getting up to their altitudes, but InSky staying a little bit lower, 16,000, 8,000. Some of these pilots quite low. Interesting to see. I wonder what their intent is. And despite the fact that they have a significant altitude difference, these aircraft are staying in a pretty similar position. They're still fighting together. Communication, of course, one of the key tenets of SATAC and of teams doing well. But it does look like the Hornet and the Viper have formed back up for InSky both. So I think we are just seeing a bit of personal preference in choosing the Hornet. and almost nothing else. I think it's just down to personal preference. I don't think the teams are looking to use the inclusion of a different jet to get a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I said it very early. You know, I think sometimes you can kind of split hairs on these sort of things because they are, you know, again, when you're not looking at edge case sort of tactics, they are very much the same aircraft. You know, same weapons, same. Obviously, the Hornet, at least in my opinion, is not as ergonomic as the F-16, but you know, it's better in other ways. So yeah, it could very much down to just be
and
personal preference.
when players are confident in their abilities in a jet, the ergonomic difference really doesn't give too much of impact. But the battle area is contested. Blue and red both getting in. Wolfpack first to get in. Looks like they've got a little bit of a wall here. You know, we are seeing a bit of a formation here, despite the fact that they're working in 3 separated out groups. They are coming in together in a wall. Somewhat equidistant, 10-mile separation. You know, not quite online, but they're getting into the fight and they're getting it in early. It looks like they're looking to take control of more of this circle. Definitely pushing InSky towards the edges. InSky still coming in. Groups are tight. Groups are working together, but oh goodness, I thought this was a group of 2 ship. That is a tight formation they're flying here.
That's good for the camera. Smile. You're on
Indeed.
TV.
See how that formation affects their piloting. We have seen a little bit of split off. One of the Vipers now at 9,000. The other has climbed up here 20,000, looking to catch up with its brethren. Does look gorgeous, and of course that sun making some beautiful rays. That's something we haven't talked about yet today, Rich, and something we really ought to. That sun, that's low in the west, isn't it? This is late afternoon. These fights, these fights, the server doesn't reset. We could see this go into nighttime.
So the server at the end of the round, and everyone's all down. The server will reset, so the time of day will be reset. But yeah, mid-fight, absolutely. You know, if it, you know, time's of the essence. If the fight's a long one, it could very well set while the match is still being played, and that brings its whole new challenges.
It does.
Just like flying overcast.
Indeed, flying overcast, less fun, but at least the sun is out. I would assume that most of these teams, I mean, personally, I know in a situation like this, I would still elect to bring the helmet-mounted queuing system into the fight. Some of these teams might not have taken the helmet-mounted queuing system into the fight. In election of taking those night vision goggles, perhaps they haven't quite caught on to the fact that the sun is low and that the fight, if it goes on long, could turn dark. Will be interesting to see how they react to that dynamically. Looks like the teams are getting in here about 50 miles.
At least personally, I'm really giving shots. As you don't really have a choice in the flanker. You don't MVGs. Oh, those are a thing. But yeah, absolutely. You know, I guess if you're planning to stay around for a very long while, then yeah, absolutely. You know, you're gonna want to have those MVGs, maybe, you know, over the helmet. But again, yeah,
Indeed.
You know, it depends on what the pilots are comfortable with.
Let's take a look at TAC view as the pilots get into their last little bit of setup here. Getting themselves sorted out. Looks like InSky starting to fence out a bit. You can see here we can really start to appreciate that altitude difference that Yanyu is inserting by staying down here at a much lower altitude, which is an interesting decision. Normally you want to be high and fast. Yanyu low and, you know, not slow, but Mach 0.69, definitely not coming in screaming. Wolfpack ready. Looks like they've started to collapse their formation a bit. Their wall has started to tighten up as they've seen InSky's deployment. InSky hiding their hand a little bit, waiting to deploy until just now and starting to fence into the larger
they're gonna
circle.
Be, careful here because the 2 lead men of Wolfpack are screaming in at Mach 1.5 here.
They really are. 1.5, 30,000. Wolfpack is going to scream. Some of these shots, I mean, they could be quite quick here. Perhaps Roller going to take a first shot. Looks like maybe Roller working Yanyu.
Braver men than
Dreamwalker.
We're within 20 miles now from lead
have our
of
first
both
launch.
flights.
AIM-120C at a groovy jerky. Looks like it's going straight for Yanyu. That missile has a ton of energy. It is screaming off the jet. I don't even think it has to loft. At roller with groovy now, leaving the fight, not taking a second missile launch. Of course, OVO and the question mark back there in the back. A little bit too far to be engaged. Second missile out here from Critter. This one looks a little bit less like it's going to connect. Now, it seems to be going for perhaps HTWJ. Again, InSky is low, but they're starting to, we can see, I mean, they're turning cold. They're bleeding those missiles. Perhaps this is, of course, the goal that we mentioned before, that they'll be trying to bleed out missiles, get in their grinder, and get the fight back on their side. That looks to me like a rather long distance shot here out of this AIM-120. Perhaps going for HTWJ, but HTWJ is already low and in the notch. That's a lot of distance for a missile. Doesn't have a high PK.
Also interesting to note that's Blue's down 3 missiles now, and InSky haven't shot a single one. So I think it's very evident what InSky looking to do here.
InSky does seem to be looking to bring those missiles, bleed them out. Another launch here, probably targeted on OVO. Could be targeted on Yanyu. If it's targeted on Yanyu, I think that's definitely a bit better for the missile. Yanyu has lost a lot of, not a ton of speed, is staying low, and perhaps maybe this is where we're starting to see Yanyu's tactics. Staying low, the Viper's engine has such a high thrust-to-weight ratio that it's able to pick up its speed quite quickly, and that allows it to do these maneuvers at low speed. The Hornet does have good engine, good speed, not as good fuel efficiency down low. It can burn through a lot of its fuel quite quickly. Let's go ahead and take a look back in DCS at these guys.
This might be interesting depending on how Dreamwalker plays this.
Indeed, Dreamwalker firing off the first missile. Oh, Dreamwalker low with the burners on. InSky still having their fuel tanks on despite dodging active missiles here. Roller is getting engaged by an AIM-120. You can see him there starting to dump the chaff. The program is working. That looks like program 4, if I know my Vipers. Does seem that this missile is defeated, though. Enough G's were pulled.
His altitude.
Oh,
yeah,
perhaps
he's
not.
To go down.
And there it goes. And, of course, we can see Roller electing to jettison his fuel tanks, which is, I think, conventional wisdom would say the more apt decision to go ahead and join the peanut gallery. I would prefer to drop my fuel tanks, but you do lose, of course, the fuel in those tanks. InSky seems to be pretty confident in their ability to bleed these missiles out of Wolfpack, that they're willing to keep those tanks on to provide them with a bit more fuel down low. I mean, you can see Yanyu screaming down at the deck with burners on and tanks on, definitely making the most use out of his fuel, despite the fact that I think 3 missiles have been defeated by Yanyu. Teams coming back in. Both teams maintaining good separation. Looks like we've got a Fox. Battle 1-1 and Roller both foxing, one on OVO, one on Dreamwalker, much closer now. We're looking at 10-mile Foxes. These are certainly within extremely lethal range. Both players able to turn cold as the active missile seekers pick up their targets right away. We can hear the jet. We can see the jet. There he is. See that bright glowing can as he runs, but no, it looks like he has once again defeated the missile using speed and going cold. Finally getting rid of his tanks there.
Another interesting factoid right now. InSky have only launched a single AIM-120 Charlie.
They have. They only launched one 120. Now, it didn't connect and was easily defeated by Roller, but they definitely have the missile advantage. We've got another 2 missiles out. Each team has a total of 24 missiles. InSky, of course, now with 23 missiles. Wolfpack down quite a lot. Probably around, 75-50% of their missiles remaining.
Yeah, so right now I think it's in their best interest to try and make something happen, because I think if they keep going like this, I think they're going to be out of actives, and InSky are going to have all of the actives.
Indeed.
Roller onto Dreamwalker. Oh, this is getting a bit much now, but into the ground. Good stuff.
Looks like Critter Fox 3 out on... Who is that on? Looks like that's on Dreamwalker. Dreamwalker dodging one missile. HTWJ AMRAM into Roller. Looks like that might have been a high off bore sight. That missile is turning hard.
I don't think they realised that he was there, and
I don't think they do. Oh no, that could be on Critter. Oh,
gets away,
no, indeed. And Roller, aware the missile is there, getting his own chaff and flare out, of course, using the Vipers.
OVO found a good position at 23,000 feet above the fight here.
OVO was able to scream up, get some missiles off. We've got one looking on Ranzi, one on Groovy Jerky, gets a return missile from Pale Rider, one from Battle 1-1. Ranzi and Groovy Jerky low.
Groovy Jerky, though, may be in trouble. He needs to correct this notch. He may just fly by.
And they do. They do just fly by. And, of course, we heard the slight sonic boom. Critter takes a missile. This missile looks like it could be Criddle. Oh, Critter goes down. First loss for Wolfpack.
Looks like a classic Dragon Bag. Seems to be chasing. He was chasing HTYJ, and he dragged a little too far.
Indeed, Battle 1-1 chasing OVO out. Dreamwalker gets another Fox on Roller. Both aircraft turning into the defensive. Look at those missiles trading, almost like they could hit each other. Dreamwalker puts the missile into the ground. Roller needs more G's.
I think he's got him.
Oh, it's slowly coming in there.
Just enough.
Oh my god. Wow. I don't think we've ever seen something that close. That is incredible. Wolfpack here definitely making the fight. You know, they are bringing the fight to InSky.
What I like to see here is Huawei is basically been above 25,000 this entire match. He hasn't found an opportunity to shoot a missile downhill, but he's definitely in a good spot to make a kill.
Roller taking one off the nose, going to have to turn events instantly.
Is going to be rough.
This one looks scary, and it unfortunately is. That is another shoot down for Dreamwalker, but Pale Rider got two missiles inbound. It looks one perhaps on Yanyu, one on Dreamwalker. InSky does still have their 6 players up. Wolfpack down to 4, taking 2 losses. Low altitude, low on missiles. You can see these missiles are slowing down real fast as they have to fight through the thick air at low altitude to get these guys, whereas players like OVO and Wu Wei are able to stay up at high altitude. I mean, Wu Wei up 33,000 feet, just chilling, all of his missiles, all of his fuel tanks. Another missile off here from OVO. We might have had a C-fit. We are down to 3 players on Wolfpack. Could have had somebody hit the ground trying to dodge the missile out of OVO. Battle 1-1. Does look like there was a AMRAM kill that we did not see. Flying past the wreckage of his teammate here as he looks to try and make a kill down to only his sidewinders, but there was a missile out. And looks like a Wolfpack player was lost up here. Perhaps that fire coming from HTWJ. Battle 1-1 coming in close to Dreamwalker. Missile off from Dreamwalker.
Battle 1-1 found himself to the merge. I think
Battle 1-1 in the merge. Fox 2. Missile screens off. Splash 1.
Does HTWJ see it though? It's below his nose.
No, HTWJ does not seem to see it. Battle 1-1 looks like going for Yanyu now. Pale Rider coming in. HTWJ looks like he is on Pale Rider. Pale Rider does still have 2 active missiles. Perhaps InSky thinking the missiles are gone. Oh, Pale Rider defending the AM-120 launch off HWJ. 3 missiles. HWJ firing almost every single active missile he's allowed to bring. They're looking to get the fight finished, and they get the fight finished here. It is now a 1v5. Battle 1-1 fires off his last 9M. Screaming out here, low altitude burner off that Viper. It's tracking. It's tracking well. Lost him for a second, but it's back and it's out of steam. That's all the missiles on Battle. Defeated HWJ coming around on the 6. HWJ fired off a lot of his active missiles at a single target there.
He's down to 9Ms now.
Down to his heaters. But of course, screaming, and he's got the fuel, and he's got support from his teammate, question marks, up at high altitude. Still looking, I mean, you can see, yeah, these two pilots, Wu Wei, Wu. Oh, that looks like it's got the steam required. You can see it's tracking not the first dot on your screen, but this second dot, the one getting bigger. Oh, missile looks like it got defeated ever so slightly there. Bad missile, but you can see InSky just collapsing the fight here. Another 9M out from HTWJ. It's like a bunch of seagulls screaming, mine, mine, mine. This missile looks like it's good, and unfortunately, that's the best that you can do. Still a very good fight out of Wolfpack, and extreme aggression. We did see, I think, a little bit of what we were expecting. InSky playing the grinder game. I mean, even at the end, we've got Wu Wei up here, 24,000 feet, only fired a single AIM-120 throughout the entire fight. And it looks like question marks, more or less the same. Did fire an extra 9M, looking to get that final kill there. Man, unfortunately, those burning wreckages do look very nice on the dark desert sky. Of course, question mark rocking that fun little ASCII mark on the tail, making it very difficult to call them out while casting.
That's true.
InSky, of course, does still have to land. Oh, and we see an AIM-7P fired out of OVO. Looks like OVO might be on, well, not low enough fuel here to warrant dropping out of burner, but all the InSky pilots making their way back to base, they do probably have a pretty decent amount of fuel left, especially those Vipers that were up high. Let's go ahead and take a look at that TAC view.
That's very well blown by, I think, OVO. He pretty much didn't drop below 25,000, which that definitely takes some doing, not to sort of naturally decrease. I don't know if he managed to get a kill opportunity from that, but having somebody sort of up high while everyone's scanning low, you do sometimes have an opportunity where you can kind of fly over the top and then just sort of deploy your missiles like bombs if they were.
Indeed. Looks like we, of course, see here the early fights. Wolfpack does have a grinder going on here. Not quite as much as InSky, but they are definitely employing grinder tactics. Ron's and Critter over here. Roller, Battle, Groovy, Jerky going up first. Pale Rider does actually hang back a little bit, and probably to try and figure out a way to support the team best. Hoping, I assume, for some initial kills off those early missiles. Unfortunately, it ends up not working, with InSky being able to defeat a lot of the missiles, and sort of that's what we continue to see. Wolfpack very much willing to put their missiles out, and InSky very much willing to have them on their playing field. But you can see, I mean, this center line of the bullseye, Wolfpack definitely encroaches into the territory of InSky. They bring the fight to them. They're extremely aggressive, continuing to put missiles out. And when we talked about earlier today, we talked about kinematic defeating of these missiles. InSky is really able to use the kinematic defeat methodology. They're getting these missiles to run out of energy too early. We see, of course, that first return missile from HTWJ, and we do see a fantastic kinematic defeat from Roller. Missile here out of InSky does drop a little bit of altitude here, does drop into OVO, does drop lower than 10,000 in this fight, but able to pick that energy back up and keep that altitude up. And of course, there is Wu Wei hanging out like a predator, waiting for the chance to strike. Indeed, good defending and a bit of a cross block.
Those missiles, absolutely, because those missiles are on high. So I think Raz notches, and then Groovy gets a little close there, but eventually turns away.
Indeed, and of course we do see the first loss here from Critter. Question mark screams down at a high altitude across the entire map and just fires that right into Critter's nose, and Critter's is just almost unable. Got a little bit too aggressive taking HTWJ, and question mark is able to complete that.
Critter's seeing red, unfortunately.
Indeed, the red here is Critter fights with HTWJ, not paying attention to the fact that Dreamwalker and question mark, now remember, question mark has run across the sky. Dreamwalker just gets himself in a great position to come in and support, and of course with question mark firing the missile, Dreamwalker right here does not need to do it.
That's another thing to mention as well, because that's it. Where's his nearest friendly fighter?
Exactly. Roller, of course, was the nearest friendly fighter for Critter. Attempts to get this missile off here at Dreamwalker. We see these missiles trade. I mean, God, they look like they might have well intercepted each other there. I believe this is the one where we see Roller, you know, just a nice casual formation with an AIM-120C. Keep him nice and in a close fingertip formation. Walks away from that missile.
It was an optimal defense. I'll give him that. But he had us worried for a minute there. But he seemed to put enough G's on just to sort of bleed it out and just have it chase for a bit.
Indeed. Now a couple more missiles here. Roller does eat this missile out of Dreamwalker, and here we started to see the bubble start to collapse. Now, it should be worth mentioning that Wolfpack defeated some close-range AIM-120 shots like this are lethal, and Wolfpack was able to dodge quite a few of them. Oh, it looks like Rand's here. What happened to this? An in-air detonation, or perhaps some desync and a C-fit. We'll have to figure this out, but
it could be a desync with the missile, but there was definitely a missile impact here. It's a client-side hit detection, so what we see obviously isn't always what the shooter sees. But it could also be over-G.
And it looks like this might have been the missile. A little bit of desync and a little bit delayed, but you can see that it, of course, screams right down. So that could have been the missile that did the damage.
F-18, you got that paddle switch, which I think has been changed to be a lot more reliable. But there was a time where ripping your wings was pretty easy hitting that. So who knows? Of
course, the fight. Now we see Pale Rider coming up and eat. I mean, they're just taking no prisoners.
InSky, just Wu-Wei further back, just the altitude differential.
I don't know if they had enough missiles out on Pale Rider. They must have known that Pale Rider had missiles or were prepared for that and knew he was hanging back, because
I think he knows.
That is 4 120s.
It's sort of end game. I think he knows that he's definitely with NEZ, so he's just, well, if I shoot 3, it
guaranteed a kill.
You can kind of notch maybe 1 or 2. You know, it's not exactly the best etiquette if that's the kind of plan. You kind of want to shoot them from different aircraft, but yeah, defeating all 3 would probably be a bit of a tough one.
Indeed, and here, of course, we see the final fight as InSky closes up the circle. Battle 1-1, not giving up the fight, still screaming after Yanyu. Wants to get that 1 guns kill, but unable, and of course, they fly back home. Let's check in with them, see how their flight home is doing.
Currently doing some very interesting maneuvers on final here for Wu-Wei.
Let's take a look at these. Ooh.
Seem to
it is dark.
Yep.
But it looks like we've got question mark down. Seeing Wu-Wei now land here. Of course, these guys now have 1 down, which means that victory is confirmed in their favor. 1 for InSky, none for Wolfpack. But a close fight. Perhaps a little high there. We'll have to see as they get themselves down. Looks like the Hornet coming in for its own landing here. Does look like a busy night at a commercial airport now after this fight. Able to keep a lot of their pilots around until the end of the round, until their victory with 5 aircraft. Woo! Bit bouncy there. Was that Wu-Wei? It was Wu-Wei. Wu-Wei perhaps a little bit too used to spending time up at 32,000 feet, a little bit bouncy on the touchdown, or perhaps just low fuel.
You gotta come back down sometime.
Eventually. Unfortunately, we all have to land at one point, as upsetting as that might be.
It is unfortunate. What goes up must come down. Unless you're an AIM-54, then I don't know.
What comes up continues to go up. Or some of those R-27 ERs that we saw last week that just sort of climbed up until the game was like, I guess it doesn't exist anymore.
Just keep on going.
A little bit of a fast landing here. It looks like they're definitely ready to get their aircraft down. What do we have going on here? Ooh, Viper. No lights. Deciding, I'm putting my engines off. I am landing. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What's going on there? Landed in the wake turbulence, maybe.
Yep.
And an expedite out. Yep. A little bit fast.
Yeah, I would also abort at that point. I think that's a
Indeed.
very good
I think
call.
that was
not to try and save it.
That was the correct call. Trying to save that could have gone poorly. Last few pilots getting themselves down. Yanyu still needing to land. It looks like question mark went all the way to the end of the runway to hang out here. Ready for the next fight, but
Yep.
indeed.
We'll
now,
see
of course,
if Yanyu
we now
wants
see...
to take another attempt too.
Yeah, indeed.
And
We'll
then,
let Yanyu take
we'll
one
get the
last
next round
attempt.
going.
As you can see, the pilots are now very well aware the sky will go dark. Oh, HDWJ still on their final. A nice Viper lined out by the moon. Of course, we don't see the last week. Last week's the landings were a little bit less given with the clouds, and everybody was dealing with those frame rate issues. I think that most people fighting in last week's matches would have enjoyed the multi-threading update that we got to DCS. Enjoyed some of those extra frames they could have had, because I know I certainly would have streaming it. Able to get a significant improvement in my own frames, allowing me for some better settings and some better quality on the stream. We were a bit choppy there before.
Looks like Yanyu's the last to come down here.
Indeed, HDWJ, a little bit of ground effect, and the wheels get down. A nice soft landing. And we've got our final jet now with landing lights. This is an improvement. Last time... Oh, hold on. That's not a landing light. Is that a shooting star? It might be. Probably just. Getting rid of that last bit of weight. Doesn't need it for landing.
Yeah.
The lights turned off again. The cold and dark landing. You'll never know he was there except for the massive taxi light.
Same 120. Crossing shooting across the sky. Make a wish.
Make a wish. Everybody wish on a shooting 120.
You can wish for everything, apart from having 120s changed. Everything else, though, you could.
Can I wish for the 120D? I would like more.
No.
Let's make it unbalanced. Only me. I'm the only pilot allowed to have the 120D. That'll give me a fair fighting chance against some of these guys at SATAC.
That seems
Here
to
we
be
go.
coming in nice
Much
and
better
steady.
approach. Nice touchdown there.
And your man is down.
Definitely can see those stuttering issues that Edie was talking about, but I'm very glad to have the new patch. All right. Go back to watching that TAC view while we get the server ready.
That is officially 1 point to InSky.
1 point to InSky. Congratulations on their first round win. Now these fights are best out of 3. So the first person to get 2 victories is the winner, but we could see, of course, Wolfpack turn it around, learn from the fight that they've just had, push themselves to do better, and I think they can. I think they put up a fantastic fight. They dodged some incredibly lethal missiles that I think most people would have found themselves falling victim to.
Absolutely.
I think they've got to just get their last little second sorted out, and they could take it into a 1v1, and we could see a deciding match, which, again, I mean, fantastic performance from both teams. What do you think needs to be done just ever so slightly to change the game into Wolfpack's favor? What do you think they need to change about their tactic?
So, obviously, without kind of tearing up the floorboards, just be more aggressive. At the end of the day, with InSky and how they do their grinder, if they elect not to shoot missiles, there's no reason why you shouldn't take that advantage and press. Obviously, the issues start then becoming, do you have the mutual support and the cohesion to make sure all the InSky players are marked and they can't get their noses back in after turning away without shooting a missile. That's definitely easier said than done. But obviously Wolfpack, they're very much, they're electing to sort of use a lot of missiles early. So I feel like, if that's the game plan, you've kind of got to drop into that sort of very aggressive, no turning cold, only defending to the beam and no further back, and just try and close that distance while they've got their noses in the other direction.
That bonsai fight, keep it going.
Absolutely.
Force InSky to have to change how they're playing. Let's get back into the DCS. What will change for this fight now, maybe not so important, but with the sun setting, it could certainly have an effect, not so much on the terrain, but on the pilot's abilities to read their HUDs, read their MFDs, and see out of their jet. Of course, now the InSky team will be on the blue side down here at Liwa, whereas Wolfpack will show up at the red side up to the north. About the only change, the players are not allowed to change what aircraft they're flying in. All the Vipers will have to maintain being a Viper. All the Hornets will have to maintain being Hornets, all 2 of the Hornets. They can change their loadouts, which is where we can start seeing perhaps a little bit of an adjustment to whatever tactics they saw. I wonder if InSky, personally, I wonder if with InSky's passive play, throwing some Talds in the mix might actually do them well. Especially with somebody as aggressive as Wolfpack. It seems like Wolfpack is really just shooting at their radar contacts, trying to get those missiles out there, force InSky into the defensive. Unfortunately, that's playing into InSky's hands a little bit, but some Talds might actually really be able to throw Wolfpack off their game. But by the same condition, I think Wolfpack really could make good use out of Talds by getting some more of those in there to force InSky to stop playing so defensively. Make them go on the offensive. Make them turn back in hot. Make them shoot their own missiles. Make them lose their altitude.
Yeah. It would definitely give them less sort of essay on where the front is, like, I guess, quote unquote. When you're kind of working that passive, you need kind of a good idea of like, okay, how close is that lead man to me? And obviously, I think the Talds would complicate that quite a bit.
And we've seen some Tald work this year. We saw some last week with Red Squadron, RS coming out with some Talds, using them much the way that we just said here. Try to confuse players by throwing them out there, getting them a little bit confused. Hey, is that good? Is that bad? And even though we heard that TMC was actively talking about what ones were Talds and trying their best to figure it out, they still ended up firing, I think, on 2 Talds, which was, it does show that they can be confusing, and in the heat of the moment, players are well within their likelihood to fire missiles at them. How many rounds? Each match is a best of 2, so the first person to get 2 wins. So it might be 3 rounds, might be 2 rounds. Could be 4, technically. You can tie, but 4 is unlikely.
If we have because again that is very rare. But then again, we see fitting chances kind of increase. But yeah, there is another round to play for if that's how the outcome is.
Yep, indeed. C-fitting, running out of fuel, multiple ways for the problem to come. I do like seeing all of the pilots getting in nice in line with their squadron liveries. Of course, as a livery artist myself, seeing all these liveries is nice, and especially seeing, not for the first time, some of these liveries. Seeing some of them being made and not quite knowing what they're for, but indeed good. Of course, yes, Wolfpack now has access to the 737 and other aircraft you see here on screen. They can use these in their fight. They will be loading up all the passenger seats with AIM-120s, and we'll be firing them out the rear and side doors. No, of course, just the scenery. Would be interesting. Now, of course, something like a an aerial refueling aircraft wouldn't have much impact. But what are some thoughts? I've mentioned this before on teams having a bit of an in-flight shot caller. Now, right now, that would have to be somebody who is doing a second job. Viper pilot would still have to be flying their jet. Even a Tomcat Rio would still have to be in the back seat, be working the radar. But of course, with the F-15E on the horizon, everybody's module they're all thirsting for. I mean, I know I am.
When do we get to shoot one down?
When do we get to shoot one down? When do I get to shoot people down in one? No, but would you be expecting to see some in-flight shot callers? And of course, as somebody who flies the competition, don't give away any of 51st Trade secrets here, but do you guys think that you'll have an in-flight shot caller, somebody to try and guide the team to get even a little bit more cohesion, so that stuff doesn't have to be done so much on practice? Or are you guys continuing to look at, well, we'll just fly with the pilots that we have?
Well, obviously we fly flankers, so some of the stuff that obviously has been talked about, the F-15E in that kind of role, isn't available to us, and probably again, we're dealing with FC3 here, so you kind of cut down even more. But yeah, the Daylink exists, and that's kind of what we work with now. But obviously the F-15 and its radar, the possibility for, like you say, having somebody to see what's going on and have that kind of grand picture could be beneficial. Like, for example, I can't remember exactly, it was the first loss for Wolfpack, but if you had somebody sort of seeing the whole picture, you could probably see that dragon bag developing and able to either get him help or call him off.
Turn cold, yeah.
Exactly, because he fell right into the jaws, unfortunately.
Indeed,
easily
of
done,
course. Maury in chat, I assume TMC Maury here, saying no shot caller needed in 51st KAP. They are connected via a psychic link, like the pilots in the Avatar movie, the Blue People Avatar movies.
Maury said too much. He won't
said
be
too
seeing
much.
him
Giving
again.
away trade secrets. Maury banned from the competition. Very sad. No, of course.
No more Jeff for Maury.
No more Jeff. Yes, that is indeed correct. We saw Maury flying the Jeff quite often. We'll just get a nice lineup here.
What's interesting now is InSky is electing to do more of a tight grouping for their lineup, which is in stark contrast to what they did last round.
Indeed. Could have decided, hey, it took us too long to get in the fight and we were too split up. The Wolfpack guys were very much willing. Hey, this is a formation for lineup that I am familiar with, that I don't think we see outside of you flanker guys. The staggered 4-ship right here. Something I have been waiting to see out of teams here. The biggest benefit here is that these pilots can take off without getting in each other's wake turbulences. So that first element there, if they do this the way I expect them to. Okay. Well, they're doing something.
Uh-oh, no.
They're doing something. I spoke too soon. It was going so well. Well, we'll go about it anyways. What you can do is, if you stagger like this, where your number 3 man is almost lined up right on that white line, you can get your aircraft, where your first 2 aircraft take off on mill throttle, your second element takes off on burner, and you basically, if you do it correct, which is not as difficult as it may sound, you are almost perfectly in formation. All you have to do is cross that number 4 guy over to the right side, and you are in formation in a finger 4 on takeoff, which is extremely helpful if you need to get places quick. And, you know, in a fight like this, you definitely do, but it does seem they've decided to, they've elected not to do that. Perhaps they were deciding it might be a little bit too risky. They haven't practiced it enough. Let's go see what Wolfpack's doing on their ramp.
Yeah, it's think of it as kind of like an overhead brake, but for the takeoff, you know, you're just looking for the most optimal way to get everybody together on takeoff roll, and you know, you're basically using the, you know, the entire width of the runway to give everyone sort of a clean lane of air that they can follow up, and then obviously, if you've mentioned having the leads on mill and the trailers on afterburner, you can get that rejoined super quick, as the trailers obviously have a more thrust being in AB. So yeah, you know, same ideology as the just your overhead, you know, just what can, you know, to get together in the air as quick as possible. Obviously as safe as possible.
That is the goal, after all, is to get up in the air safely. You don't want to get caught in a wake turbulence. Looks like Wolfpack is lined up here on their runway as well, electing for much the same they did last time. I think we'll see pretty rapid takeoffs here, not trying to stagger it across the runway. Just waiting for that ready call from Wolfpack, and we'll give them the countdown to get the fight on. See how they change their tactics up from last time. See what they want to do to ensure their victory.
Sure, they're having the classic last-minute pep talk.
Indeed, the if this were a football game, this would be the halftime talk. Figure it out. Talk about what you got to do. There's no timeouts. There's no pause. Once you're flying, you're flying. But the little last seconds, here's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna win this one, guys. Definitely has to ask them what they're up to. Wolfpack is ready. Fight's ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fights on. Wolfpack rolling right away, doing their 2-ship takeoffs like we saw last time.
Yep, straight into afterburner again.
Interesting enough, Wolfpack actually has seemed to have set themselves up. Ooh, little squirrely F-16 there. Viper, Hornet up at the same time. Wolfpack is very good at getting all their jets airborne quick, even without using a little bit of wake turbulence there, without using that tactic we talked about, getting everybody clean air. Wolfpack are more than willing to fight through the dirty air to make sure that they're airborne at much the same time. And that makes Wolfpack all airborne. InSky only has their second set of aircraft rolling.
Yep, if he taking their time, though, you know, kind of matches the tactic they've been playing, which is, you know, being passive. You know, they don't, you know, if they can take their time, they you know, they can take their, you know, it's all good. Though obviously, if you want to get in there high, fast, high energy, then you know, you want to try and get in there quick.
Indeed, indeed. Of course, yeah, having that higher energy does have a lot of benefits, but you know, InSky definitely was passive the last time around. Could be willing to save some of that energy. It will be interesting to see.
Yeah, we'll
watch
see.
them do their final takeoff rolls here.
I think they're gonna mainly do the same again. You know, don't fix what's not broken. But let's say, you know, by Wolfpack get a lot more aggressive and they're able to mark the pilots and make a few kills.
Indeed.
But then, you know, who knows? Round 3, you know, can change again.
Could change again. I'd like to see a round 3. We'll let them take off here. Watch the fight unfold a little bit.
But yeah, I'll have to see how it plays out, because again, this is it. You know, high energy is good and all that, but it can very much be a double-edged sword, especially when you're at that altitude and you've got low bandits. But if you're able to kind of take the reins, so to speak, it can definitely play out in your favor, despite being, you know, looking face value, quite a risky play to make.
Indeed. Well, looks like Wolfpack electing much the same tactic. InSky looks like, in terms of their ingress, these teams are much doing the same thing. I think InSky is certainly using the, look, if it's not broken, I'm not going to fix it mentality here. Largely the same ingress, as you were saying. But the real question will be, how does Wolfpack change up their fight? How do they change their aggressive playstyle? They certainly were aggressive, but as it was mentioned in chat, what Wolfpack really needs is some kills. They need to make sure those missiles are connecting.
Digging this a little deeper, the ingress is fine. But in round one, obviously they had the two leaders nearly pushing Mach 1.5. But once they launched, they kind of just sliced back and just kind of dropped that. You know, like I say, it's a double-edged sword. You know, you got to know how to kind of take the reins, and you know, if you do get launch warning, know how to use that energy. Try and keep it as well as defeating the missile. But yeah, ideally, since they didn't take any return fire, they kind of need to be, pitching back in and pressing the attack rather than kind of slicing back and kind of dropping that Mach number, just for that first launch.
Rich, I've just realized something. I think I know why this isn't the first time I've seen the Wolfpack liveries.
Oh, yeah?
I think I made their Tomcat livery.
Well, that would explain, that.
I was like, hold on a moment. This looks familiar. It is familiar. I'll have to double check myself on that, but
It's gotta go into the archive.
Gotta go into the archive.
Too many liveries.
Yeah.
So it looks like we've got a mix of altitudes again for both teams.
Indeed. Let's go ahead and check that out on the TAC view. That's, I think, the best way to take a look at
Absolutely.
how the different teams have sorted themselves out. Indeed, Yanyu once again, high speed, low altitude, gaining a bit here. We see, of course, the 3-ship up here, a little bit of a loose 3-ship. Perhaps they're trying to deal with trying to trick the Viper radar. Now, the Viper radar will obviously be able to discern this, but looking at the HTS, you might not be able to see that Flanker C and HTWJ are in formation, and you'll think that it is just a 2-ship with a bit of drag there. Of course, Wolfpack, once again, a little bit of altitude deviation here, but largely similar. We've got Ronzi and Roller ripping it down center. They're all high Mach. Well, they're not high Mach. They're all high. They're all almost above Mach, and really within their abilities to push themselves into Mach.
Yep, I think much like round one, they're obviously got some sort of criteria for when they're like, okay, let's push it up.
Let's push the burners in now.
Who knows? Maybe they may go for a more passive stance this time round.
Indeed, we're still looking at about a 60-mile separation between the nearest pilot on red and the nearest pilot on nearest pilot on blue.
Yeah,
in that 3-ship there.
There's something interesting about round one is just how close both teams got until missiles started launching, like 20 miles, especially, sort of
Indeed.
First pass when you've got altitude.
And
it's
both teams
clearly,
clearly capable of pushing the missiles in and then being able to defend the return missiles. I mean, there were several good defenses out of Wolfpack before they ate a missile, and of course, InSky seems to have trained with dodging missiles as their main mentality. But the team's capable, very capable, of using their jets to the fullest potential.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt we'll see that again now.
I am sure we will.
Yeah, I got a feeling Wolfpack might be taking this more slower now. We still haven't got anybody above the Mach. Scratch that, we've got Groovy Jerry now pushing Mach 1.
Groovy Jerry, Mach 1. We had a couple, somebody else 0.9, high, still fast. but perhaps saving some fuel or wanting to get a bit closer, they have jettisoned their central tanks. InSky now have a nice... Oh. Well, that was just glorious.
Nice separation there.
A nice separation there. Got lucky that I turned around to look at it at the right time.
Also got Wolfpack making some moves. Roller seems to be deploying off to the south now.
Indeed, indeed. Roller looks like Groovy Jerry. Pale Rider working those southern groups, letting Critter and Battle start stealing with maybe the northern groups, or perhaps Snow Roller turning this around now.
Yeah, like this, are they setting up a grinder here?
They might be. I mean, we've seen them implement grinder tactics. This is a tight grinder if it is, but yeah, it does look like Roller and Rand setting up a grinder. Pale Rider, Groovy Jerry, Critter, and Battle as two separate elements fighting around this grinder maybe. You know, okay, InSky, you guys wanted to play it passive, now we play it passive. That's another grinder, looks like, out of Battle and Critter.
Here's my prediction then. See, you know, because we've seen both teams, you know, defending, so that they're obviously know what they're doing. I got a feeling this may just come straight down to missiles.
Indeed.
Which it seems InSky definitely have more an advantage in how they seem a lot more disciplined in when they decide to commit those missiles.
Looks like Wolfpack might have sprung a track here. We've got 3 120s. Wolfpack getting into a beautiful wall here. A little bit of altitude deviation, but getting into a wall, firing off their missiles. We've got 4 120s screaming out here.
So this is it. If they don't take return fire, they need to, again, if they were going to play passively, I wouldn't have 5 missiles now. Okay.
5 missiles. That is a lot. That is a lot of ordnance.
They have to sort of commit to an aggressive fight, because that's it. I don't think they're going to take return fire, so they kind of want to make sure those A120s are well spent in, you know, gaining.
Indeed. It does look like largely they're aggressive. Battle, Rands, and Groovy have gone into a bit of a defensive, but Critter, Roller, and Pale Rider are pushing it up the middle. Roller now fires a second 120 here. Looks like at Yanyu. Yanyu fast, very much capable of defeating this missile. Critter firing another missile. Looks like this one's at Flanker C. Pale Rider coming around from the east. Yanyu already defensive. They're very good at getting a lot of missiles. Rands fires a aim 7. Sparrow at something, perhaps thinks he has a contact, maybe a missile confusion, maybe thinks he can fire at Flanker C over here. Perhaps trying to get Flanker C to defend the active launch of that aim 7, thinking it's a 120. That'll be something worth asking why that aim 7 was launched. But Rands immediately turns cold. Missile barely guides on anything, so perhaps maybe it was just a misclick. Unfortunately
for Wolfpack, I think the passive sort of missile game is off the table now after that very big exchange, and we've not much to show for it. But that's it. They're not taking
show and not much altitude to show. We still have, here we are, over 32,000 feet, just
so they're
screaming up here, looking down at everybody fighting, whereas
they're turning and
Wolfpack
burning,
is on the deck.
No, this is it, yeah, Wolfpack, you know, they're turning and burning, but what are they turning and burning against? You know, once again, they took 0 fire, but defending, you know, what you could call ghost missiles, you know, missiles that don't exist.
Indeed, indeed. A lot of defense that doesn't need to be done, perhaps.
It's one of the kind of big skills, you know.
Instead of going into a crank, choosing instead to go into a defensive maneuver. They're not really pushing those missiles home too much.
Putting yourself in a position where you can defend missiles safely when you get the RWR tone is kind of one of the big, I think, skills in these sort of matches. You know, if you kind of defending on, oh, there may be a missile. I think, you know, you kind of leave a lot on the table doing that.
Indeed.
And I feel like that's kind of what's happening here today.
We do have a missile coming in. Looks like this one's probably at OVO, forcing OVO to get out of 32,000 feet. We're gonna guide. We're gonna loft in on you. I don't think this is likely to actually connect here, but does force OVO to do something. Right, pulls him out from up there. 2 more missiles. Rands and Groovy Jerky looks like probably on HTWJ. OVO has a ton of energy. absolutely screaming up here. In-gate, supersonic, you know.
Yeah, more missiles
Spent about 4,000 feet of energy putting that back in. And yeah, a lot of missiles spent here.
It's not entirely fair because they are gaining ground, but that's it. You know, you need the missiles to kind of, if you can't get them out the bubble by the time you run, scosh in this case. Yeah, I'm gonna turn it around onto you.
No, we're still looking at about 2 to 4. I mean, there are a couple. Well, Pale Rider still full missiles. Still got 2 missiles on Rands. Wow, that gorgeous setting sun on that Black Hornet. Whew. Looks like she's fully in the shade. Looking good. You know, they aren't fully out of missiles. And what do we have going on here? Where is your... You've got somebody near you. Where is he?
Rands has an opportunity here onto InSky 368, but 8 miles now, but he's electing to go cold. That's
Flanker C fires at Battle 1-1. Battle 1-1 taking it down to the deck. Gets rid of his tanks. You know, they've got the speed. You can't deny that Wolfpack knows that they need the speed and knows that they need energy. And of course, you know, yeah, they've passed that center line. Wolfpack now a pretty tight group here, lower altitudes, but I mean there are 2 aircraft in InSky who are at high altitudes, but a lot of them are also at below 10,000. Missile here out of question mark at Pale Rider.
And that's
receives 2 120s in return, but 27,000.
Pale Rider's in big trouble here.
Definitely unfortunate. And Pale Rider was one of the ones with all of their missiles still. HTWJ firing off at Battle here. Battle firing a return missile. Same. Both aircraft at low altitude. Can Battle run this one out?
Yanyu onto Roller. Roller's in trouble here. He's gone sub-Mach in the turn.
He is unable to. Battle's down. HWJ
Roller
definitely gets the missile.
Roller's, yeah, he's out of here.
Roller once again. He still wants to keep that formation tight.
From
OVO.
31,000 feet. Oh my, it's like bombs away.
Oh, yeah. And that's down with Critter. OVO.
Shack.
Making good use of the altitude to ensure that those missiles are doing well. And now Wolfpack down into a 3v6. It seems like they weren't able to keep up the aggression that we were hoping to see out of them. You know,
those high flies
unable
in sky
to make use out of their early aggression by not having the needed aggression to back it up. AIM-120C had a groovy jerky here on OVO. OVO returning 120C. Of course, the fact that OVO is almost 18,000 feet higher means his missile's got a ton of energy.
Groovy Jerry's in trouble here as well.
Groovy Jerry's in trouble. So is Rands. Rands gets a last-second shot out on Flanker C, but nope. Groovy Jerky eats one. Does Rand eat a second one? Stuttering.
I just look at the difference between those 2 missiles. Yeah, Ramsey's down.
Ramsey's down. Roller, now the only one left alive, has 1 active, 2 heaters in a 1v6 situation, and it looks like InSky has decided to use their time to get the altitude back. Flanker C firing a strange 120. Perhaps that was a misclick. Now we have question mark HWTJ OVO trying to get the nose launch. Yanyu, low altitude Roller does see, you know, hey, Yanyu's at my altitude. He's 8 miles away, but it's just not enough, and that 120C out of OVO just comes out of the space. That is a second victory. That is a grand slam for InSky with 6 aircraft remaining.
A good showing of sort of the advantages that altitude can bring, especially sort of if you're able to, you know, be disciplined and keep that sort of into the late to late fight, you know, because that's it. OVO just came on in, and I think we also had another InSky flyer there, and it's just, you know, Pickle 2 and Shack 2.
Indeed.
So I'll have to see that in the replay.
Indeed, we'll have to pull that back in the TAC view. Which, let's just get right into the TAC view. Of course, we'll bring this all the way back to the start, where we did see Wolfpack did push out front, but looks like, hey, no, we want to stay in a wall, and they get in a really nice wall here with a 5-ship, and they just chuck those missiles out. We have 5 missiles go out here. It ends up being 6, but you can see Critter and Roller continue to push. Now, they spend altitude here, probably a little bit more than they needed, but it's good. If you're going into a crank, you do need to spend some altitude. Continue to push in while Battle Rans and Groovy Jerky go out cold. Roller and Critter pushing way up, and this is almost what we wanted to see here. They got those initial missiles out, and then they fired a second set close in with Roller and Critter, but then they turn away. And they turn away, and they really didn't need to, right? If we take a look at the battle picture here, the biggest threat, Flanker C and Yanyu. Yanyu is low. Flanker C is turning defensive. They could have continued, Roller and Critter could have continued this push and gotten right up inside the tail of Yanyu, Kano, HTWJ, and Flanker C. Probably would have allowed a much better outcome for this fight, but they turn a little bit passive. They turn cold. Now, they are working with their team. Their team is here, right? They were out in front. Now they're out with the whole team. They're in the pack. I mean, their name certainly isn't false. Wolfpack stays tight. They stay together, but unfortunately, they get their missiles off, but they're at such low altitudes. Watch, if we bring this like here, you'll start to see some of the altitude differences here. Lower on the deck, even in this second engagement, they have some altitude, but they spend a lot of altitude that they don't need to. They're going to the store with a ton of energy currency, and they're just blowing it on everything without even getting any return from it. You can see OVO, question mark up here. I mean, just completely watching the fight happen, and now you almost get a situation where Wolfpack is right on top of each other, but they're unable to support each other because they're all at low altitude. Of course, continuing to be aggressive here. I mean, you got to give credit to Wolfpack for not giving up the fight. Consistently pushing the fight forward here and doing a better job of it this time than last time. I mean, we saw aim 9s out of Critters while most of his teammates were still active. I mean, push the fight with HTWJ, but not able to make it connect down into the 3-on-3. And it unfortunately just slowly unfolds from there for Wolfpack as InSky is able to clean up their victory. Definitely an impressive showing from them.
Yep, absolutely. Like I was saying, I think it's a good sort of, you know, analysis, like a match to watch for the whole, you know, sometimes obviously you want to be defending missiles preemptively, let's say, but sort of knowing or putting yourself into situations where you can kind of wait for confirmation that there is a missile for real and it's trying to kill you before making your defense is obviously a lot better, especially if you're being very aggressive, which I feel like is kind of what's needed. Unless you can beat InSky in the grinder, that's kind of what you need. Since they don't exchange on the first launch, that should, in theory, be an advantage. You're able to kind of just push into them, and as long as everyone's marked and they can't get their noses back in, it should be, obviously easier said than done. But yeah, it's the what ifs I feel like might have got inside the heads of a couple of pilots, and they're kind of turning cold, expecting a missile, but there was never a missile in the first place, unfortunately. And then obviously InSky, sort of mid to late game, having pilots up very high, 30,000 plus. There's a good actually on the tap view. There's an exchange between I think OVO and Groovy Jerry near the end, which you can just see the difference. They both shoot at each other at the same time, but OVO's at 30,000 and Groovy Jerry's on the ground, and Groovy Jerry's missile goes nowhere near him. OVO that is, but OVO's missile shooting from high to low.
Indeed, let's go take a look at that.
It's with speed to it's with speed to go. So, but yeah, just sort of thinking like high level from that fight, I feel like that's probably the biggest thing to kind of glean. InSky really kind of putting that knowledge to good use.
And here's that engagement that we're talking about. You can see, I mean, both missiles fired roughly the same time. You can see how much higher in altitude OVO is.
And OVO shoots it high off bore sight as well. This isn't even head on. It's
indeed, that missile has so much energy you can just see. I mean, it was so much and so that I thought Yanyu was being fired at, but it was in fact OVO. And just able to connect in with Groovy Jerky, a little bit of desync on the TAC view.
Yeah.
OVO
So remember,
continues to
guys,
just easily
hit
defeat that missile using
blind
this
side.
altitude.
So on OVO's screen, that missile's a clean hit, but we have a little bit of desync at play here. Yeah, like, you know, Groovy Jerry, I think if you would have turned cold, I think that would have done. But that's it, isn't it, though? You know, it's that part of the fight where turning cold is kind of not an option anymore, so you're kind of getting very risky with the notch. But that's it, though, isn't it? You know, if you've just got, your missiles just got so much more energy than your opponents in an exchange like that, you have just more options, naturally.
Indeed, indeed. And OVO, of course, was more than willing to look. I mean, we'll just track back OVO's pilot flight light here. Look at how high altitude. I mean, he is, you know, when Rich says dropping it like it's a bomb, I mean, that missile immediately goes downwards. That's just got so much energy. And of course, it's Pitbull, which means OVO is completely fine to continue. Just let that missile go. And, you know, this is when you can trust in your missile. That is almost a guaranteed kill. I mean, Critter obviously defends it instantly, but it's almost impossible to defend.
No, it's coming from above you, like on
in
top
fact,
of you.
picks up a bit. Yeah, it's almost impossible. You know, continues to pick up the altitude here as we see the shot against Groovy Jerry. Now, in this choice, okay, I'm going to descend some altitude. I'm going to lose it. But look, right here. I know my missile's defeated. Climbs back up. Immediately pulls that altitude back. I mean, this is something that InSky is doing a fantastic job of always having somebody high.
In that. Because it's very easy, yeah, because you see it all the, well, I wouldn't say all the time, you know, I feel like people are kind of, you know, working it, but you do naturally see a lot of sort of fights kind of, they start high, but after the first exchange, it's all sort of, you know, on the ground in the muck, you know, doing that dirty sort of notching, grinding, you know, not really an advantage for either team, but I think the teams that can kind of really, you know, understand the what's at play with the altitude. I feel like they kind of get an advantage there, and you know, that's it. As you saw here, you know, once InSky had a few kills on the board, it you know, it kind of snowballs from then on out.
InSky definitely celebrating the outcome of that much a little bit. Some low altitude flying, but they do get their first guy gear down, and that is now that confirms InSky.
Yep.
Second point for InSky. Giving them 2 points, making them the victors of today's match. But not to say it. Oh, you know, InSky.
Oh,
he didn't blow up, so you still get the point.
Yeah, if
was that quite the moment for me to say officially get the point. Oh, and somebody comes screaming in overhead in burner. Who was that?
Well, what was that? Something about discipline and altitude. Well, at least when it comes to the ground ops, yeah, no comment.
Well, it's in their name, isn't it? They're in sky, not on the ground.
Yeah, not in ground. Well,
in ground,
I think
yes,
they're trying.
exactly.
I think they're working on that right now.
Yeah, they're expanding to the in-ground role now. That Hornet gets a nice, beautiful landing.
They've mastered in rain, and now it's in ground.
now we're working on in ground. We'll give them a passing grade, but we expect more now. They're of course having fun.
Yeah, working.
The nerves and the exhilaration of having just won those 2 matches is definitely weighing on them. We'll have to see. We'll have to talk with them and Wolfpack in some interviews here. After the rest of InSky gets their feet on the ground, making up for a beautiful F-16 landing. They're making up for the new museum. Airfield has a new museum on that side, on the north side of the runway. Single F-16. Oh, here we go. Low altitude flares over the runway. In full gate.
Pop, pop.
Pop, pop.
I wonder how hot those burn. Oh, that's probably secret documents. Yeah,
probably secret. I mean, well, they're magnesium, so it's probably just the temperature of magnesium when it ignites.
Yeah, you probably don't want to, like, I don't know, hit something,
grab
like a building or something, one of those, or that. Yeah, I wouldn't touch one either.
We're talking about Vipers here, notorious for hoovering up any speck of dust. The residue from flares would probably count as dust. Of course, InSky having to talk to their mechanics after this fight and say, hey, look, we were so excited we put a bunch of hot stuff inside the engine in the wrong spot. Here's a case of beers. Fix it over the weekend.
Yeah, that's all it takes for a ground crew. It seems just find the alcohol. And it's all good. Seems some members of InSky are kind of taking it a bit easy.
They finished their in-ground training. Some of them are still going through their in-ground qualifications. And that's the last one down, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, Yan Yu once again, last man. And,
last man.
That is all InSky players down.
Flanker C, of course, choosing his own landing spot. A little bit of think the nose touched the ground there. Otherwise, somebody came by with a shotgun. But hey, got down, and so did the rest of the team. So.
Well, it's the chair force, isn't it? So he's, he has a bit of a walk here. It's exercise. So. Ah,
yes, of course. Yeah, after a mission, your legs get sore and tired if you don't. You gotta get the blood flowing through them again after having squeezed so much for all of those G's. Well, Rich, let's go ahead and see if we can't track down some Wolfpack pilots and some InSky pilots to have some interviews with.
Yeah, absolutely. Currently working right now.
A little meeting here. Captain's meeting.
Of the
gray aircraft, they're chatting here. These two are just ready to go again. They don't know. Is there a third round? They're ready to fight it. And there he goes. Absolutely fantastic flying out of InSky today. And really, I mean, we've said this in the past, guys. Just because there is a 2-0 on the scoreboard doesn't mean that the fight wasn't put up. I mean, Wolfpack did a great job defending missiles, working as a team. I mean, the fact that they were able to consistently get mass launches like that off shows that they've been putting in the effort to be a good set of pilots. InSky happened to have a tactic that I think won out here, but I'm excited to see more. What can Wolfpack do in other situations? And I think we do see a little bit more out of them against ETF.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next week, we'll be able to see will their tactic prove a little bit better against a team that's not as passive as InSky. Once you get out of the InSky defensive game, does that level of aggression really play through here? And it'll be worth checking out because, of course, it was definitely a good set of fights.
So unfortunately, I don't think I can track anyone down for a quick talk. So yeah, I think we'll finish here.
Unfortunate. Well, we'll go ahead and we'll run the trailer, and if you can track someone down after that, we'll have an interview. But we'll get there when we get there.
Sounds good.
We'll call him a Southern Group. Eastern Group is 50 east of Whopper. Eastern Group now turning cold angle. Understand, cleared to kill.
Leader past the line now.
Cleared kill, cleared kill.
По курсу до цели полсотни 3. Больше 3. По фронту между целью 2 километра. Roger, back. Hey, do you copy? Sector, box to your leader, east over. Second. Работаю по верхнему. Давай, выхожу вправо. Пост.